Thank you to GameWare Create for being a channel partner. Looking for a Kickstarter game you missed or 3D printed minis? GameWare Create has a huge selection available, all at a fair price. Use the link in the description below to check out all that GameWare Create has to offer. What's up, Rockstars? Today I have a great update for you guys. I'm going to be telling you all about the big summer update for Sankokushin, the 5 Sacrifices. This is going to be huge. You guys are going to love it. And this is the last big update before the one right before they launch. So this should be pretty interesting. Now, as always, a huge shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. Without their financial support, this channel would not be possible. I just recently had to actually give some information and really compile a whole bunch of data around how much I've spent on this channel. Thousands and thousands of dollars. This is an expensive hobby and it's expensive to run this. This camera alone cost quite a bit. If you appreciate that kind of stuff and you appreciate the channel and want to see it as good as it can get, then I do greatly appreciate your support. There's a link down below to that. And you get a cool Discord and some behind the scenes updates and polls and giveaways, and there's a audio log, all sorts of cool stuff there. But if you don't want to, even if it's at $1 a month, I get it. That's fine. Totally okay. A like on the video just tells me that at least you appreciated the video, appreciated my time looking into this. This was a long detail video and I read it all. So yeah, it's a doozy, but I'll summarize it for you guys. I'll get the highlights. We'll move on through it pretty quick. You'll get all the info you need. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into that. But seriously, a like on the video does help. You can do it right now even, and I do greatly appreciate that. Or a comment letting me know too. Trust me, it helps. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's fine too. All right, so this is a big update. They do some big updates. They've only done a few, but they're really big when they do it. I didn't do a video on the last one. I want to do a video on this one. So I'm just going to be summarizing very high level, but we're going to go from top to bottom. So you're going to see everything, but we're going to skip some of the fluff or I'll summarize it for you. So first of all, it's going to talk about crows a lot. Crows are a big deal in Sankokushin, apparently. Again, that's kind of what we're learning. You can sacrifice crows. There's some crow worship. There's some crow bad guys. So let's talk about that actually. So they were like, burying a priestess, and as they dug, they found a crow, and then it was really evil and bad and had a green glowing eye, and then it started eating her. He gently lifts what remains of the maiden's cadaver and places it onto his back. Throws himself onto her corpse, partially devouring it in an abhorrent feast of gurgling, gulping, and mastication. He's not okay. All right, this guy, not okay. They're calling him Yatagarasu, and again, you will have to forgive everything I say when it comes to pronouncing things. I can barely speak English, so Japanese is just not going to happen, but I'll do what I can. I don't see it on his back, but we don't see his back, by the way. This is the miniature. You can kind of see the glowing green kind of stuff coming out there. It does have 2 people that don't look very happy. I guess these are other priestesses, perhaps. Yeah, either way, not good. Maybe this is him picking her up and then he'll put the corpse on his back. Maybe it's just right before that. But yeah, there's nobody happy around him, that's for sure. Now they show this attack card here, or this card, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce what that is, but essentially right here it's saying hey, you need blood tags on your weapons, otherwise you're not going to really be able to harm him. He has a plus 10 armor, so I have a 5+ armor there, which is pretty big. And then also, hey, if you're able to see him, yeah, you're going to suffer some stress. This actually has all the crows on the field explode, and then it leaves back a blood pool terrain token. I wonder if you can use that to get a blood tag on your weapon. I wonder. So anyway, and then he attacks and his strike value is equal to the number of crows that exploded. So yeah, nasty stuff here. Definitely not cool. And then it talks about here, we're all heroes in line of sight, and then, the range is unlimited, and on hits, he discards a blood token, and then if you did, you get +1 key, and it talks about if the Miko priestess population is 10+. So this interacts with both the population of the town and the crows in the town and stuff like that, and I'm sure it might spawn some and stuff like that too. But this is really what it's talking about here is that a lot of their attack cards or wounds or all this kind of stuff, this is a wound card we're looking at right now, interact with the city itself and the kind of the population around that too. I've seen Storm Center do that to good effect, and so it's kind of cool to see it here. This is actually the corpse, so I'm assuming, this is why I assume it's the corpse. You can rip off one of her limbs, and if you do, you gain 1 mutilation of Dawn accessory, and Yatagarasu suffers -1 endurance. But if you're not heartless or a psychopath, you get a little bit of stress doing that. That's a thing. So this talks about the Miko priestess population, the crow population. That really matters here. Here's a crow minion token. It talks about how the bosses have minions, but they're not just like ads that you have to go through. They actually interact with their powers, as you can see. She's very sad. We're going to move on past that and move to these control panels here. So this is the psychological control panel and the physical. This is psychological here on the right. And then on the left here is the physical. So it's going to actually go into the psychological first. You can see you have the deck and then the discard with a little pool there, kind of combining the two. And then you have your condition cards and some attribute tokens. And you can kind of interact with those tokens. Right now they're using the Greek letter psi. However, they're kind of, it's a very useful symbol for kind of psychological stuff. It's what it's used most often and what we experience, at least here in the Western world. However, it is a Greek letter, and this is kind of Japanese. Now, there is some intermixing there. They talk about that, but I can kind of see why. Like, that almost looks like Alien Trespass Odyssey to me, right? And so I can kind of get it. However, reading through this, I still really liked seeing the symbol. It was still very useful. And I'm always a fan of form over, or, like function over form. Like, get the game playing smoothly and then make it as pretty as you can be with that. But I would not sacrifice a gameplay hit just to make something look nicer, in my opinion. Here's the physical. You get the encounter deck, the encounter discard. You get these wound zones, and then the posture deck with the posture gauge, and then the reaction deck. It's going to talk about postures later, so we're going to go and get into that. So here's this guy here, and actually right here it's going to talk about, this is kind of like a posture card here, and it talks about how place 1 Naoriki token on the Naorai token on the reaction card deck. Max 1. If no tokens can be placed, perform a standard attack instead. That's his posture action. Every time a reaction card is drawn, the attacker loses 1 key. And then, of course, if there was a token before drawing a reaction card, discard 1 token based on the reaction card deck. After resolving the reaction, perform a standard attack. If a psi or a psychological card is discarded, remove 1 token from the reaction card deck without any consequence. And then when it's discarded, if the attacker is on high guard, immediately perform a standard attack targeting them. If the attacker has the Her Eyes gear, ignore the above effect and discard the top psychological card. So it's going to talk about endurance, and really that's just getting this gauge to 0. That's what you want to do. If you kind of work down their gauge like that and keep the tokens light, then you'll have a better time attacking them. If their posture is really high and you're busy attacking them, it's not going to do as you can see, the reactions are worse, and they're just going to be doing damage to you. So you're kind of having to navigate, but the looks of it, I'm going to scroll back up here. It looks like you're having to navigate kind of several different things. You can kit yourself as kind of a psychological character where you have the clothing that helps with psychological stuff and the gear and the abilities that allow you to attack somebody's psyche or do somebody's psyche. You can also have story events. We'll talk about NPCs later, that you can use to manage this. So you're trying to manage this, and then you're also trying to manage this, and you're also trying to manage this here, right? So here's kind of that posture gauge. So you're trying to make sure that their posture's down. You're trying to make sure that psychologically they're not at their prime. And you're also trying to do some other stuff here with the wounds. And so it's kind of managing all that. And this is where I think the group play comes in, is, you can kit yourself to be, all right, I'm going to handle the psychological stuff. You deal with his like high guard postures and stuff like that. So that's kind of, I think, where you can specialize here. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the store a little bit. Let's go and keep going here. Right here, it's talking about the posture gauge, right? So you'll notice this symbol is the same as, scrolling back up, as this right here, right? So that's kind of where they're dealing with that, essentially. All right. So, now we're looking here at this kind of technique. When you inflict 3+ damage during an attack after resolving it, you may roll 1 available psi die and add the rolled icons to the psi pool. This is considered a psychological action. No charisma card is flipped. So this is kind of a psychological technique that you can do. So it's talking about dealing with their endurance and then also their posture cards. It says the boss's wounds heal between encounters at a slow pace, which means each time the hero fights an opponent, they will be weaker. It also means that you typically aren't going to just go in and kill them right away. It's not how this game is designed. It's kind of you have a few bosses, but things change in story-wise and things change in the fight-wise with those bosses as you slowly kind of deal with them maybe over a certain amount of time. So what you're going to want to do is make it to where they get weaker each time so that next time you're good to go on that. And again, they will be healing over time as well. So it says right here, however, as the story progresses, opponents often become stronger due to specific events in the story arc. So try to avoid arriving at the final battle against a full strength opponent, obviously. So you're kind of managing that. Now here it's talking about these wounds here. You have the tentacle blade and the shinobi suit. So here you can actually see that if you're wearing a shinobi suit gear, you actually gain +1 emphasize. In other words, you're like, hey, I know how you feel. And if you have the obsession status card, then she receives +1 award. And then add 2 tokens of your choice to the psychology pool and immediately draw 1 psychological card. So this is kind of psychological here. On the tentacle blades, however, it says sharp as words. Katsu receives -1 strength. The device begins to repair itself at the end of the encounter. Heal this wound. However, this is a 4th wound of tentacle blade. You actually gain a tentacle blade weapon. So as you kind of attack this over and over again, you end up getting a reward. So often wounding all the cards of the same type will bring valuable rewards. In this cases, a character build that permits you to manipulate the wound deck will come in handy. So again, you can aim somebody towards the wounds and then aim somebody towards the psychological stuff. Many effects heavily depend on the overall situation, take into consideration not only your relationship with the opponent, but also your equipments and skills. We particularly love this design approach and we're pursuing it more. So very cool that you, and again, I'm going to scroll up here because I think it's important. So somebody can build themselves to just manage these wounds. Somebody can build themselves to just manage that. That is kind of an interesting thing where you essentially have these asymmetric paths that you're going to be kind of going towards. And it looks like you have to balance them all to be able to defeat them successfully. You can't just ignore the wounds. And you can't just ignore that. Or you're going to have a really hard time with it. So somebody needs to be dealing with posture. Somebody needs to be dealing with wounds. Somebody needs to be dealing with psychological effects. And you can kind of cater yourself accordingly. And in fact, I imagine your role might change depending on the enemy as well. Okay, bounty cards here. This is kind of interesting. Right now, they're just they're the ones they're just showing us are the current encounter, but they're kind of like side tasks, right? Or subtasks. If you can get this, you get bonuses. So for instance, during the encounter, you might have inner self, gather 1 remnant and destroy 2 shadows. If you did that, congrats, you get the cat's mask. Or these other ones are the tier of Yumi, which again, it says they're versatile rewards that can be used in the city phase to gain different things. So you can spend 1 hero action to take it with them and resolve its effect, which always ends with the encounter. So you just go on with +1 strength. Or, and then it talks about action points. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. These other ones, discard 2 posture cards. So, you can gain the posture breaker. Think of it as kind of like a mini achievement with a little added award there. So the better you do in a match, the more rewards you can get, of course. Inflict 1 front wound and 1 back wound to Karakuri, which is the shadow, suit of armor guy. Action points. This is the time-based thing. Essentially, you have weeks, and each week you have 3 action points you can spend, and you get to have to choose where to spend them, which is kind of rough. We'll talk about that a little bit more. It'll go back to that. Here's injuries. Injuries are drawn when a hero has suffered too much damage on a single guard stance. So you have to switch up your stance. In other words, you can sprain your ankle by kind of dealing with that. But you can also just kind of keep going with it. You'll just have -1 movement, which kind of sucks. However, if another hero's adjacent, they help you stand up. You two feel closer now. You and the other hero gain 1 key. So that's kind of cool. These are normal ones, but if you keep getting them, 1 out of 3 injury cards is a grave injury. Like a blowout fracture of the orbit in your eye, -1 accuracy. Yeah, don't do that. And then it has kind of 1 action point. Synthesize Color spend 1 pure water at Tsubaki's shop. Or a fractured scapula, which is -1 defense, and it just lasts until you actually heal it. You can spend 2 Mon at Tsubaki's shop, and if you have 7+ mind, gain +1 accuracy there. We'll actually see the shop in a little bit. So the grave injuries persist, right, until you heal them up. They just kind of stick with you, which is not good. Okay, this is some fluff. I'm going to go and skip by the fluff for now. That's not really important to anything that you guys would necessarily. You can dive into this. It'll be linked down below. It talks about the crows and a sun goddess. It's really explaining this here and what this does here. But again, I'm going to actually go ahead and skip it. Essentially, it's again a crow population psychological thing. So now even the items are interacting with that. So and it says right here, the crow population has an impact on many mechanics, and it can be managed as a Uzumi temple. So there's a temple that you can kind of manage it at in the town here. This is talking about Tomo, which is this new mini here. Looks great, obviously very cool. Now, one thing I noticed is I was like, there is nothing attaching her to the base. Like, she is floating, and that is not possible. Well, look at that. Man, you don't miss a detail. You're right, I don't. I noticed it right away, but then I noticed that you said it too. So yes, no, they'll figure it out. This is a big deal. Miniature collectors, Tomo will be available as a 75mm resin model for the first run of 50 copies. Pre-orders will open in late August. Now, at first, I was like, that's BS. 50 is just, first of all, it's too low, right? Second of all, there will be more people who want that. How resin miniatures work, and I'm assuming the resin model, is they are in a silicone mold, which can't withstand too many copies. And obviously, like a steel mold made out of steel can make thousands of the same mini before it gets damaged. If you recall the melted soldier in Nemesis, that was from a damaged steel mold, which sometimes happens on accident, but can also just happen after thousands and thousands. You do have to replace them. They don't last forever. Silicone molds, though, last maybe, I'd cut it at 50. You might be able to get 75. You might only be able to get, you might only be able to get 25. It just depends on how complex the mold is, how good you are extracting it. You really have to kind of scrape it out, essentially. It's a very, very detailed process, only for small batches. So I get the 50, but you could always just make it again for the next 50, make it again for the next 50. So I was really upset about this. And then I saw first run, which means it implies a second run and maybe even a third run. So hopefully everybody that wants to get these can. If nothing else, I will try to get a hold of them so that I can show you guys to them, because I feel if at least somebody who got one of those 50 can show it off to you, then that's good. Now, these things are not cheap. And so if I have to buy it, that's where patrons come in. So again, patron link down below. It allows me to show you guys stuff on this channel. It really does. So anyway, I'll be working on trying to get that. And this is this art we've seen for a long time. That's her. Or at least that's the miniature version of her. Obviously quite different than this kind of art. And this kind of art style is obviously different as well. I've noticed there's a few different art styles, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Here's Yamashiro. You've seen this before. This is kind of the map. However, they're going to label some of it here. We got goddess tears over here, terraces. You got Yaroshiro's linchpin, divine tongue there, arrow here, city's edge, path of the mountain, and its spiral right there. Okay, kind of interesting. So now it's talking about the week. Remember I mentioned this. So you get time points. Sorry, not action points. Time points. So you gain 3 time points that you can spend to perform various actions. For instance, encounters take 2. So you only have 1 other to do things with. So you have to make decisions on, are you going to deal with the city thing? Are you going to go heal up? Are you going, if you think about the town phase and think about how limiting that is, it reminds me of Darkest Dungeon, actually, when you go to camp and I only have these many things. I can say a prayer here, and I can bandage up wounds here, and I can say a speech here, but then that's it. I don't have enough to do everything I want to do. Here it's talking about the resources flows you can gain, right? And so up here, you can upgrade different areas to gain 2 sin, I'm assuming, instead of 1, which would have been right here, or flip to gain 2. So you can essentially get these field tokens that you can do. But again, Endless Rain, which is the lady standing on the base with kind of the rippled water, that actually affects your fields, your crops and stuff. So all of these bosses are interacting with the city, and the city's interacting with them. Quite interesting, I think. So again, different art style here. So there's a wide variety. However, I love the color. I think that's great. Dawn Breeze. I'm not going to talk about this too much. Essentially, you can just heal stuff. So moving on from that, Crow Sacrifice. Here's another crow interaction. At the beginning of the week, you may sacrifice 1 crow. It'll lower the population of the crows. If you do, all sites gain the following ability. Until the end of this week, ignore the first time the site is damaged. So if you're dealing with Endless Rain and she's damaging your stuff, maybe you want to sacrifice a crow. However, that lowers the population of your crows. Maybe that'll affect different things as well. Who knows? This is talking about terrain tokens. I'm going to skip this for the most part. It's typical stuff. You can't move through a route, or debris slow you down or whatever, and your endurance, whatever. And the Secret Remnant, it depends on what you're doing there. You kind of pray at them, but they do different things. So moving through all of that, and again, this is me trying to summarize a lot of information for you guys. So hopefully I'm doing that, tying it all together. Let's look at Tsubaki Koima. I can't even say that. It's her shop. This is a shop. The main two most important things. There's a kitty up here, and there's Axis Game Shops. I see you, Axis Muddy. I see what you're doing there, right there in the corner. So again, you can see the Axis Games shop there, which I thought was kind of fun. And of course the cats are fun too. But anyway, that's kind of the shop of different stuff. A giant throwing star and whatnot here. Okay, so I was talking about different things you can do. And again, these are 1 AP, 2 AP, and 1 AP here. So you can go to the pharmacy and get this. One interesting thing here is the sake jar. You have to have a shadow contamination equal to 6+ in order to craft this. So in other words, you have to kind of like be in you have to be contaminated by shadows to enjoy a good jar of sake, I guess. But otherwise, these two healing items you can get normally, or you can remove all negative modifiers and gain 1 key, or discard a status card. This is kind of that thing where, you just spend 1 sin to do that. And then you can have these clothes here. Now these clothes, actually, and this is kind of what it talks about here. Here's some of the different like healing stuff you can do. I think this is her, by the way. But this is me assuming. One thing it mentions is that these clothes here, I'm assuming these here, it just says that you can get them pretty early. It actually helps psychological effects. So in other words, you can dress up to, I don't know if you're like dressed up as a geisha or what. I don't know what the kind of like psychological stuff is necessarily, but you can again equip yourself towards that, which I think is super cool. All right, so this is a different location underneath where it was really old before even the city was, and people have been looting it, but people were getting sick down there even faster. This is talking about different areas that you can explore. They're actually adding that. So this wasn't necessarily something you could do a whole lot now, but they really like the idea of a new area to explore. So that's just what this is talking about. Is it's not just a city. You can actually go spend time down in these other areas and really get to know them as well. So there will be an excavation site story arc that actually comes through that and is influenced by stuff that you're doing there. Here's some of the people that have an opinion on it, and it talks about, we should close it off and just let scholars be there, or we should help those in need, or we shouldn't be there at all. We should just all leave. I mean, everybody has a different opinion on it. And then what we have here is it's kind of talking about not only them, but the NPCs here. So you recognize her right here. And then you'll recognize Katsu. Speaking of which, I'll go and show you this. Always a good chance to show that. There's Katsu. So that's kind of what she's going to look like. I went ahead and painted her. There's a painting video. I'm going to link that down below as well. You can kind of see that's kind of the boss you'll be fighting there with her. And you'll see deadline current week. And it says here, okay, so the villagers are scared of the demon shinobi. Kill that abomination as soon as possible. Menaces to social order must be removed. So engage. Start failed sacrifice Katsu. That's her right here. So you start the encounter. If you fail, minus morale 2, and your social bond is worsened with Katsumi, which is this lady here. However, if you're a victor, then you gain 1 tier of Yumi, and Katsumi's social bond increases. Okay, so you did what you wanted. However, right here, we have Nanako. Same thing, current week. She killed another victim. The Interior Ministry won't wait much longer before cleansing the village. I must speak to her. I can do something. Please trust me. So again, you engage with the failed sacrifice Katsu encounter. If you fail, you still get hurt. However, victory starts at this obsession incarnate event. Who knows what that event goes for? So now you have different people wanting different things when you go and fight her, and you need to decide what you're doing. And you have a time limit on it too. In other words, this doesn't just go away. They're not going to wait long. She's busy terrorizing a place. You either need to go or not. Now, this is actually really interesting too. So they're going through this, and I'm not going to actually go through her cards too much here. This is talking about the psychological consequence and the attack box and stuff like that. Here's different people that can be on your team, and again, they will give you different tips too. It looks like Katsu's specialty isn't close quarter combat against aggressive foes, and I think her unstable spirit can be perturbed by intimidation. However, such aggressive tactics do not sit well with me. Does she really deserve this? Despite the illness of her mind, isn't she a human being like all of us? Whereas Nene is like, yeah, I don't care. Do not listen to this imbecile. Rude. Katsu, that despicable lowlife, does not deserve to be in this world. Will you forget the miseries caused by her vileness? Will you ignore the righteous pleas of vengeance from the mothers of her victims? Fight her without restraint, as you know a monster she is. So even your teammates kind of have different opinions. So everybody has an opinion on Katsu. You can't please everybody either. So you're going to have to make hard decisions like that, both just story-wise, but also gameplay-wise. Okay, we're going to skip a morbid curse here. We're going to skip soft words, actually, as well. And this is some fluff about Katsu and whatnot. Okay, social bonds. It's going to be talking about how this week, will you go to the fight to threat who is menacing the excavation site to avoid losing the precious ore veins? Or will you see a friend one last time before they leave Yarashiro? So you have to, again, decide who you're going with, right? And what you're spending your time on. And you're going to have to make some tough choices where they might leave without you seeing them again. And this is kind of like different things that can happen. And as you level up relationships with people, you can get different rewards or events that happen. Or the events are really the big thing here. And this is talking about even like some of the like this is Endless Rain here. So even some of the bad guys, the bosses you're fighting, have these relationship statuses as well. So it's not just that. These are the dice for the psychology dice. These are the basic ones though. Apparently, as you kind of there's empathy, provocation, intimidation. You can specialize in one or the other. So if you just want to intimidate, you can do that and actually gain access to dice that have more intimidate on it so that you intimidate more often or stronger. So you'll actually gain customed dice that go towards what you're trying to do. Here's Nanako. Remember, says, I will save her. If you start an encounter with failed sacrifice, Katsu, Nanako will try to follow you. You gain this NPC card and start the encounter. One hero may perform psychology to dissuade her. And then if so, you can try and get 3 intimidation. You convince Nanako to not follow you, ignore the above effect, and gain 1 tension. Otherwise, if failed sacrifice Katsu is not alive, flip this card. And there's a level 5, remember, being level 7, know your name, where again you get this menace deck and other stuff like that. So she follows you around and now you have to help her. She might affect some psychological stuff with her or maybe not. So it changes entirely whether you have her in that fight with you or not. She will interact and the cards will interact with each other. Or you can just say, hey, no, I'm about to kill her. You're not going to want to see that. I'm going to intimidate you to leave too. Leave me alone. Let me deal with this. So every part of this is resolving in itself. It's all interconnected here. Okay, so non-gameplay content. They are announcing that they are going to really try and make this a hobby game, which means they are going to try to make extra content for collectors and hobbies to enjoy. We already saw that 50 copy 75mm resin miniatures, which again I will try to show you guys. I am getting some of their Izanami stuff to show you guys as well, so you guys can see more than just this. Right, which is great that I have this, but it'll be nice to see the other stuff as well. So since it's August, I decided to sketch a few ideas of like summer kind of stuff, right? So, basically, beach stuff and whatnot. But resin or hips, non-gameplay content will mostly be made in resin, but they're considering hips for some special miniatures. I like the sound of that. I enjoy working with hips more than resin, actually, personally. I just find it a little bit easier. But they will have kind of resin stuff as well, and they're showing off some of their stuff is here. So as you can see, it turned out great. I think it did. I think it turned out really good. Both of them did. So with that, and it shows kind of some of the stuff that come with this. Again, this is for an expansion that they're going to be doing. This is like alternate stuff. This Fear of God thing, by the way, is really, really cool. And it talks about just, different benefits you can get. They are also going to be doing some comics. So they're going to be doing comics. There will be a tease, that's what this is, in the art book for for Izanami. So we'll be seeing that. And that's it. Whew. All right, guys. Well, that was a big update. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, there is a link down below where you can dive into this, plus the other updates should you choose. Their next one, again, will be kind of right before they launch, and so it'll be right around the corner. Look forward to sharing that with you. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, and we'll work on answering those. I know a lot of people have read up on this a lot more than even me, so I'm sure they'll be able to answer. Or if nothing else, that they'll know what, I know they watch the channel, so they'll know what we're asking, maybe be able to answer some of them themselves. So thank you so much for watching. Again, if you appreciated this time in this video, give that a good old like. I do appreciate it a ton. It makes me know I'm making videos that you enjoy, which is the whole reason to make them. And if you realize how expensive this can be and you realize how much time I can put into this and you want to go ahead and give even just $1 a month, there's a Patreon link down below. All right, thank you so much, guys. I'll talk to you guys again really soon. Bye, guys.